Welcome to the Golden Age podcast. This is episode 3. And today's episode, I'm going to share with you guys just a little bit about my journey as a naval officer in the reserve, as an enlisted sailor in the reserve, and why I think you guys should at least consider joining the reserve, especially if you're someone that's still pretty young and in your 20s, even in your 30s, right? For today, I'll at least share with you guys my experience so far, the things that I've learned, and why I'm recommending this in terms of like the benefits that you get, the experiences that you will have, and also like the relationships and connections you will be able to make in the Navy itself. Now, a little bit about myself. I enlisted back in 2020, August 27, 2020. I was still in my last year of college. Had just started actually my last year of college. And I remember at this point, I had no job offers, nothing lined up with for me after college. And so this was in 2020, and I had no job offers, nothing really lined up for me after college, and I still had one more year to go. And I just kind of like, I was, trying to figure out what I was going to do after college. And if I remember correctly, during my junior year, I was at a career fair over at USD, and usually at the career fairs, well, there's multiple aisles of all these tables lined up, and you're looking at each table trying to see, if you see any companies that you recognize, or at least, something that kind of calls your name. And for me, I remember at least for my first couple of years of going to these career fairs, I really would try to avoid making contact, starting any conversation with those tables that had recruiters for military or for the police, because I wanted nothing to do with them. It was something that I had zero interest, right? And funny enough, in my junior year when I went to that career fair, as I was walking through the aisles, and there's I don't remember what the business was or the company was that I was interested in and looking at, but the recruiters there were busy, and so I was just kind of like looking around, and there was a table set up for these army recruiters, right? And I was like, don't look at them, just keep on walking. And sure enough, as I'm surveying these tables, I make eye contact with this army recruiter, and I'm just like, I'm like, damn, like he saw me, I saw him, and he like points at me or waves at me like to come over. I'm just like, all right, well, here I go. And I just introduced myself. I really had no questions, nothing to talk about, and he just asked me kind of, if I had ever heard about, the army, or if I would like to join and listen and whatnot. And I was just like, I got 1 year left, and like I told him, I've never considered joining the army or nothing like that. Like I had no intentions of joining the military, especially because like I didn't want to go anywhere away from home, right? And so that's where he asked me, well, have you heard about the reserve? The Army Reserve and the National Guard. And I had never heard about that. So he, explained to me about that and told me that it's, a week and a month where you go and drill or do your service, and then 2 weeks out of the year that you go and do some type of annual training. And, he did tell me that you go to boot camp, you go to your schooling, just like a regular, you know, active duty person. And he told me about the benefits of, healthcare, getting help for school, and all the usual stuff that you hear about the military. And telling me that like I could still get to the reserve. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that sounds good, especially because I was considering, after my bachelor's, going and getting a master's. I thought, okay, they could pay for that. That'd be cool. And yeah, sure enough, he got me interested enough and took my number down. I went over and took a practice test with him for the ASVAB and everything. And that was kind of getting my process started into getting into the military. Now, at the same time, I was working at Ralph's. I was working at Ralph's because I started working there during the pandemic, and I just ended up staying there through my last year of college because they were working with my schedule and whatnot. And when I was working at Ralph's, I remember, I would see always people come in uniform from the Navy, and I was talking to a guy, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I'm thinking about enlisting um, in the reserve, in the Army Reserve, and I just want to ask you what your experience has been with the Navy and stuff like that." And he shared experiences, but then he also told me he's like, "Dude, why don't you actually go Navy instead of Army?" I was like, he was like, there's also a Navy Reserve, and I had no clue about that. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he gave me the phone number for this Navy recruiter, who I still keep in contact with today, and I've sent him a few people that want to enlist, which is cool now because when I first met him, he was a petty officer first class, and now he's a chief. So it's always great to see how people keep on advancing. And yeah, I got in contact with this recruiter, and I basically ghosted the Army guy, and the rest is history. After that, I took my ASVAB, did my physical, went to MEPS, did everything, like everything I needed to do. And yeah, sure enough, on August 27, 2020, I, you know, did my swear in, signed my contract, and then almost a year later, the following year in 2021, after I graduated from USD in, what was it, June 24th, was when I flew out to boot camp. And yeah, rest is history. Um, Now, I was enlisted for 3.5 years, and then this last year in October 29th of 2024, I, did my commissioning ceremony because as I was enlisted, I applied to commission as an officer, and sure enough, you know, oh glory to God, I was selected the first time I applied, and I commissioned last year. Went to ODS this year, Officer Development School. Went there, and now I just have to go to my supply school because I'm going to be a supply officer now. So, that kind of is where I started and where I'm at right now. And, some expectations I had going in was like kind of what they told me, week and a month, 2 weeks a year, get into your service, and that's about it. And I will say it hasn't been completely that. Every unit is different. When I first came in, it was that I would just go do my week in a month, and everything was pretty chill, pretty relaxed. That unit was like come in, get your work done, go home. So sometimes we even go home early, which was nice. And then that unit actually got disbanded. We got merged with another unit all the way in Norfolk, and so now I found myself flying to Norfolk. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I didn't like the idea, but as I started doing that, started going over there. I enjoyed it because I had friends over there that were also in the military that I had met through my time in A school. and so I would go hang out with them, and it was actually a really good time. So, and in that case, it's kind of different because sometimes if you get assigned to a unit that's not local to you, every now and then, they're gonna fly out there, not just for your annual trainings, but they're gonna try to group some drills together for everyone to get together over there, meet each other, get work done, admin stuff that the unit needs to make sure that everyone gets done. And also for like annual training, like the minimum is 2 weeks, but if you want to do more, you can do more, which is actually really cool, and great, especially if you get to go somewhere cool. Now, I've actually never had any real deployments or anything. I did try to go active duty a couple times, but with funding issues, I never was able to go on active duty. And before I commissioned, also, I was looking at going to Italy. I had applied to some orders in Naples, Italy, and I actually interviewed for them. And they wanted me to go and start, and but I told them like, hey, like I literally just got picked up to commission as an officer, and they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, but we can't afford to pay an officer when we were advertising for a second class petty officer, right? So it's a huge difference in pay, and they couldn't do it. So I have no stories in regards to that, but being in the reserve, and the cool thing, being local is nice, right? But the cool thing about being cross assigned is that you get to go to a different city and do different things, meet or I mean, explore the city around you. And so when I've gone to Norfolk, over there, I met friends, met up with some friends, and we went to different places. We went out to Virginia Beach. Me and a buddy went up to, I think it was Williamsburg. We went to the water park up there, and it was mostly a good time until I got kind of sick to my stomach and I threw up, and then we had to come back. But that was pretty fun. And then another time that I went out there for annual training, I actually went up to DC. Flew the girlfriend up there, and see, this is a little tip for you guys. If you have this flexibility to like pick your dates for annual training, schedule your annual training around a federal holiday so you can get a 4-day weekend. Um, and that will make your experience a lot better because you can actually plan trips to nice cities around there. And so we went up to Washington D.C. We saw the Capitol, saw the White House, saw the statue of Abraham Lincoln. All that was really nice. And um, so I've really been able to make the most out of my time when I go out and go to different places. Um, Especially, having friends out there, it's nice because they'll show you these nice places to eat. Um, and just hanging out with them overall is great. And that's one of the things that I love about being in the Navy in general. It's just like the friends, all the friendships that you're going to make in there are actually going to be really good friendships that are going to last, especially if you stay in touch with those people. And, if you get to visit them, they get to visit you. It's always nice, just kind of, what's the word, reminiscing about the good times like in A school and stuff like that. And just creating nice memories there too. Now, being in the reserve, it is different from active duty in the sense that like you're a lot more responsible for being on top of your stuff, especially when it comes to like booking your flights, getting your room. All that stuff is really more on you, and you don't have someone doing it for you. So you do need to be a lot more proactive. And actually, a lot of people who come from active duty to reserve, they struggle a lot at first because there's so much for them to learn and start doing for themselves in terms, of keeping up with their records, and if they're going to go fly somewhere, getting their flights booked, getting their hotel booked. It's a lot sometimes. And it's funny because people are like, "Oh, reserve, weekend warrior," but if you're really someone that's trying to have a good career in the reserve and you're trying to promote and you're trying to be a good sailor, it's a lot more work that you got to put into it than just showing up on the weekend, right? It's making sure that you have all of your things done on time, all of your, the common trainings that we have to do, making sure that your readiness is up to date when it comes to like medical stuff, when it comes to other documents that you have to submit. Like there's a lot that you have to make sure that you stay on top so that you can go on your ATs and so that you can support the Navy. And this does turn into like another almost full-time job sometimes. So that can be a little hard for some people who are really bad with time management, but at the same time, I think it's totally worth it. And plus, like whenever you go on orders or you go on annual training, anything that you do, like you are protected by USERA, so your job cannot fire you at all. And every job is different. Some actually give you military leave to use, so you will get paid from both your job and the military. Some jobs they don't, so you might have to use, your PTO, or you might just have to go on leave without pay, right? So every job is different. Obviously, I can't speak to everyone. Uh, Me, being that I was a federal employee, I had at least like I want to say it was about 15 days of military leave that I could use, and then after that, I had to go without pay or use annual leave. So personally, I just went without pay rather than use my annual leave because I'd rather save that up for a vacation, especially if I'm already getting paid by the military anyways. Now, a typical drill weekend, I'm pretty sure this is going to be different for every unit. And like for example, my first unit, like I said, that was more show up, do your trains, do your work, right? Go to lunch, come back, finish whatever you got left, and then boom, everybody go home. For some people, that's great. For some people, it's not. It's kind of your own preference. Um, with the last unit that I was with, we that unit actually ran the medical clinic, and most of the people there, I want to say, were part of a medical rate, so they were HMs. For me, it was more just kind of helping with the admin work there. But we were at the clinic all day, all of them seeing patients. They would take your vital signs, do the PHAs. Let's see what else would they do. Immunizations, taking out blood. So that one was definitely like you're there from 7 in the morning all the way to like 3:30 or 4, depending how busy the day was. And the harder part about that was trying to find a day for us to, you know, maybe get some PT in, stuff like that. So to me at first, when I first came into that unit, it was a little rough because my days definitely felt pretty long, especially because all I could do was like admin work and I couldn't really help with anything else. So it kind of felt pretty slow and long for me in general. And now this new unit that I just joined, at least right now, I can't really speak much to it. You know, this was today was actually my first drill weekend with them, and even then, like I had to go and take care of some stuff at the Navy Reserve Center there in North Island, and so I'm not too sure yet how they run, but I know they are flex drill units. So those are the units that will, instead of doing a week and a month, they'll group a couple of drills from 2 3 months, and so they meet up for about 4 days to make the most out of that time, especially because again they have people who are assigned to them that are not just in San Diego, but they're in Hawaii, they're in other states. To be honest, now the cool thing about this unit is for annual trainings, they go to Hawaii, so that's actually something that's really nice for me this year. I won't get to go. I still have to complete my school for supply, so that's my priority right now. I gotta go to Rhode Island again. I got to go there at least 3 times for 2 weeks each time. And once I complete school with that, I'm good to do whatever. So that's kind of how that works. And then the only annual trainings I have done would be with when I was enlisted with the admin unit that I was in. And so for that, we were just learning really like how to do our jobs as personnel specialists, as PSs, right? So, I will say like I picked that job because it was the one that had the shortest school because I just wanted to go to boot camp and come back home as soon as possible. And so I never really looked at anything else except now that I remember this. Um, it's called Delayed Entry Program (DEP). I was in there for almost a year because obviously I was still in school, and I wasn't going to leave until I finished school, even though the recruiter tried to convince me multiple times to ship out early. Um, when I was in there, we did a few practice PRTs, which is the physical readiness test that we do, and totally destroyed people on the run. I did like a mile and a half in like 8:45. My pushes were okay. I did like over 50, almost 60 push-ups, especially for like not working out that intense yet, and at least going heavy and all that, and then maxed out on the plank and everything. And the guy that was organizing those meetings when we got together, he was like, dude, he was like, what did you pick for your job for your rate? I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a PS. He's like, what? He's like, bro, you completely destroyed everyone on the run, like, and you're gonna work a desk job. I was like, yeah. I was like, I just want to go to boot camp, go to school, come back home. And they were this close to convincing me to be an air rescue swimmer. And so usually those are like people, kind of give you guys an idea, are the people like in the helicopters that come down to like pick up people in the water in the mountains. They're like rescuing people that are in tight places. And I was actually this close to saying yes because I thought it was super cool. But then as I did more research, I saw that the school was like 2 years long. And if you failed, which back then, I wasn't that confident that I would pass all that training, um, you would go into the fleet undesignated. And I was like, I don't know if that risk is worth it for me, especially because I just want to come back home as soon as possible. And in addition that I'm not very good with heights anyway, so I was like, yeah, do I really see myself jumping out of a helicopter? I don't know. So I ended up saying no. But that was like that would have been probably something really cool. I don't know. Something I think about it, and but like when I've gone like hiking or whatnot, that we like are supposed to like we're gonna jump off the cliff into the water or whatnot, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know about this. I'm just like, yeah, I think I made the right choice in not doing that. Plus, who knows where I would have been in the world right now, right? And I probably wouldn't even be doing this podcast. You guys wouldn't be learning about this. But that is one thing that I always tell people is that you really want to score well on your ASVAB. Like if you're not ready, don't take it yet. Don't let the recruiter pressure you. Don't let them tell you like it doesn't matter too much. It matters a lot because the higher the score you get, the more jobs that you're gonna be able to pick from, which is what you want. You want to have the leverage to pick what you want and leave when you want, and not just have to pick something because something that you're not gonna like, and that's maybe like gonna be like a really like boring job to you, or like maybe something that's like super like um, taxing, like how do I say this? Like a job that you're gonna have really long work hours, like that can really make or break your career in terms of like how much you enjoy it and stuff like that. And also advancement too. You want to find a job that the advancements are good because obviously that means more money in your pockets. And so that's why I always recommend like study for your tests and prepare for it properly so that you're confident when you're taking the test because you want to put yourself in the best position, right? You want to be able to pick and choose and not have them pick for you. There are a good amount of reasons why I think you should join, and like I'm just going to talk about all the benefits of doing this. Some of them are going to be like benefits in terms of like healthcare and all that stuff, but like the other benefits is like the people that you get to meet and the experiences you have. And well, we'll start with like more basic stuff, right? Like healthcare is really, really cheap for reservists. Right now, I'm still under the healthcare for the federal job that I had because they made me leave my reserve healthcare, which is really stupid. But I remember I was paying like $57 just for healthcare, a month, right? And just to give you guys a comparison, like I think I'm paying right now, it's like 110 every paycheck for my insurance. So that's what, 220 compared to $57. That's a huge like discount. And that's insurance that you can get for your spouse and your children. And if you stay in long enough that you retire, if you do your 20 years, you're going to be able to also have insurance when you're older, for you and your family. And now I say this right now, right? That could change, but from what I know, right? I'm speaking from what I know, and always verify anything that I'm saying. Always verify by looking at the manual and stuff like that. But um, you're gonna be set up for life with your health insurance if you retire from the Navy. And then dental is I mean, it's not like a huge discount from what I pay right now, but maybe it's about $5 cheaper. If I'm paying like about 26, I think I was paying like 21 for the military one. And that was included, I think, also vision. I think now being in the reserve, if you do retire, your payment is definitely different. You know, as if you're active duty, it's just more based on a point system, so you get like a percentage of what your pay is at the rank that you retire. But you know, there it's really easy to rack up a lot of points and at least have a meaningful. It's not going to make you rich, but it could be like your car payment or something, for when you retire. Now, what I also think is like the best part about being in the Navy and like one of the bigger benefits is like the network that you create. So all like the friendships that you make and the connections that you make and like the experiences. But starting with the connections that you make, for me, boot camp, I don't really have any friends that I still talk from there. I have people that, I have on social media and I keep up with them. Um, but I made my closest friends in A school. In A school, that's where honestly I had like the best time in terms of my early career in the Navy because you first month I didn't class up yet, didn't start class. We just had to go do our duty stations during the day, and then we had the evenings to go to the gym and if you didn't have duty that day, you could go to the bowling alley. You could go. What else? They had a bar. They had softball fields. I actually bought baseballs when I was out there, and we would go to the field and go hit for a little bit, which was super nice. And they had other stuff. You can rent bikes. I think you could even rent like was it like a kayak or something? There was like a lake. Fishing rods, you can rent that too. Um, so you can actually do a lot and have a good time. And we would usually, on the weekends at least, we would grill outside, go by from the commissary, um, a little carne asada, or maybe to make some burgers or whatnot. And so it was nice because we would go grill. And we also had a delivery center, so we can go watch movies, play pool, ping pong. They had like Xboxes in there too. If you wanted to cook something special in there, but that you need a kitchen, you could use that as well. So there was a lot to do, and I had a really good time out there. I made good friends. The friends that I went and I saw in Virginia, and just other friends that I still keep in touch with today. That for me are brothers that the Navy has given me. And aside from there, like in each unit that I have been so far, like I've made good friends and connections. People that went to my commissioning ceremony that I still meet up with today to go have lunch with on drill weekends. So you're gonna make actually like not with everyone, but you're gonna make at least a handful, if not two handfuls, of good connections in there, and both with people your age and also people who are older that like are gonna mentor you, especially if your leadership sees that you want to be a successful sailor, that you're there on time, that you're showing up to the drills, that you're coming out for AT, you're volunteering for extra stuff. They see that you actually want to like advance and promote. I promise you, unless they're like, I don't know, over their career or something, but they will invest in you what they see you invest in and into your career. And at least for me, I had a great experience at the beginning of my career because I had first classes, chiefs, and officers that really wanted to see me succeed. And honestly, it's thanks to them that I'm an officer because of the support that they gave me since the beginning. And this is the one thing I love about the Navy too in your career is that you can relate this at least in terms to fitness, right? And the fact that what you put into it is what you get out, right? If you put bad food, bad nutrients into your body, you're going to perform bad. If you don't go to the gym, don't put the effort into taking care of your body, you're going to feel bad, right? Same thing with your naval career. If you don't put the effort into it, you're going to have a bad career or a low performing career. And you're not going to enjoy it. Now, I know some people are kind of would to kind of wrap this up. Some people are a little bit nervous about like being deployed and stuff like that. At least right now, no one can be forced to deploy. Some people have volunteered, but I think they will start tagging people for mobs. But I've heard people have really good experiences with their mobilizations. And at the end of the day, though, like if we were to go to war, and we were to get mobilized, like we're the command that your unit goes and supports, that's where you would get mobilized. So for me, I would go to Hawaii and support the command right there, right? So those are the things that you kind of have to ask and find out about. And the nice part also too about the reserve is that in a sense, you can kind of pick where you're going next. When it's your time to rotate, you gotta apply and you can look up each place, see where they go. Reach out to the person that's the point of contact for that unit and ask them, you know, where they do their annual training, who they support, if they're a flex unit or they just drill every month, and that will kind of let you have a better idea and control of your career. But I would definitely say don't run away from the unit to flex drill or like being cross assigned to a unit that's not local to you because doing all that travel is actually gonna be really cool. And just to kind of leave you guys with this, if you feel like you're not too sure what you're doing with life, where you're at, like this is a great opportunity and it was a great chance for me to go to boot camp, be there with my thoughts and just kind of think what I want to do with life. And so I think it's a great chance for anyone to at least kind of have a good backup plan where if you can't establish a career yet, well, guess what? You can go active duty and sustain yourself for a while. And so maybe you've considered joining the military, maybe you've considered going active duty or going reserve. Like if you're not comfortable about going active duty, I would say for sure go reserve because you can always switch to active duty if you end up liking the military and the camaraderie and the culture there. Um, and if you're just hesitant in general about joining, like I was kind of just having this talk with someone earlier today about like your biggest regret 9 months from now if you do this is that you didn't do it before, or if you don't do it, you're gonna regret not doing it, right? Like I would have never thought I'd join the military. I never would have thought, that I'd become an officer. Yet here I am. And I have no regrets. And it's going to be almost 5 years now in August since I enlisted. Like that's 5 years that have flown by. And the only regret you can have of of anything is just not doing it because you're not going to know if you liked it or if, you would have been good at something if you didn't try, right? And some people are like, oh, 4 years, that's a lot of commitment, or 6 years in the reserve, that's a lot of commitment. Dude, time flies by so quick that next thing you know, you're going to be in those 6 years and you're going to be like, shoot, where am I going next? Or what am I going to do? Or damn, why didn't I join the military those 6 years ago? You know? And, again, tying this back to fitness, right? Um, like when it comes to your health, like if you don't start today taking care of your body, 9 months from now, you're probably going to feel worse and you're going to be like, why didn't I start 9 months ago? Right. So, for anything in life, you can't wait for the perfect time for something to start because the perfect time was probably yesterday. Right. There's not going to be a perfect day, a perfect situation for you to do anything. You just when a chance or an opportunity presents itself, you just gotta go at it. And you know, you might start trying to go for something, and then you run into a speed bump, and then you get over that, and then you run into another speed bump, and then you get over that, and another speed bump, and you might be like, dude, like, am I not supposed to do this? But those speed bumps are actually just to make you stronger, so that when you reach the end goal of that, you're a lot better. And I believe this because when I was enlisting, I had my bachelor's. I'm like, wait, why am I not trying to go officer, right? And so I contacted an officer recruiter, and I took this other test that I had to take to see if I could even qualify. And I didn't set up myself for success because I barely studied for that test. I got little to no sleep the night before, and I woke up early to go to work that day at Ralph's. Went to Ralph's to work at like 3 in the morning to go take a test at 10 a.m. I didn't pass that test by 1 point. 1 point. Now, what I didn't know was that if I did, that was to be an officer in the Navy, but to go active duty, which was not what I wanted, right? So God was protecting me for something that wasn't for me, right? And also, I don't think I had the maturity yet to be an officer. Like, just being real with myself, I was not mature enough to do that. And so I know and I believe that God let me first endure, boot camp as an enlisted sailor, and spend a couple years as an enlisted sailor to really mature as a professional, and to be able to relate better to other sailors in the Navy as well, right? Like being previous enlisted, like you have a better understanding and relationship with other enlisted sailors, which is great as an officer. So everything has a purpose and a reason. Like when I failed that test, I felt terrible. I felt shitty. I felt like I had let myself down. But that speed bump was only to make me better. Now, you know, that speed bump didn't turn into going to boot camp and all that, which is obviously wasn't an easy experience for me in terms of being away from my family. But again, that made me stronger, right? All that time that I spent away from home made me actually realize, like, hey, being away from home is not actually going to hurt me. It made me a stronger and better person and open up my mind. And so, some experiences, they seem pretty nerve wracking. And it's like, oh man, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could be away from my family that long. But once you finish all of that and you look back at it and you're like, wow, I really did that. I really went through boot camp. I really went through A school. I really was away from my family 4, 5, 6, 7 a year, right? And you look back at that and you're like, I needed that. Or that was all for something better. Or it made me stronger, right? That wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. Going to officer development school, having to go through this other like miniature boot camp after already going through boot camp, I was like, man, I'm not looking forward to this. But again, I made great friends in that got me through the experience. I had an awesome roommate who was like the brother I never had, right? So it was all really just trusting God's plan. As long as you put in the work and that's in line with what God wants for you, like, trust me, as hard as the road's gonna be and as bumpy as it is sometimes, like, it's gonna be worth it, right? And I truly believe, and I'm not a recruiter or anything, but I truly believe everyone should consider at least joining the reserve, because it will absolutely change your life in ways that you never imagined. Not just because of the discounted Disneyland tickets or free cruises that you can get or free luggage that you can get on airplanes and stuff like that. Like that, those are all extra, really great benefits and perks. But the way it's going to develop you as a person, the people that it will bring into your life, the experiences that you will live, the places that you can meet, Like there's not many other things that or jobs, right? At least jobs where like you have to be there 9 to 5. There's not many other jobs where they will pay you to go to Europe, go to Japan, go live over there. Like, dude, if you really don't like know what you're doing with your life at the moment, like seriously consider this. And even if you do have something set up, like if you want to have a solid backup plan in your life, this is that, you know. And in addition to that, like just the respect that it brings to your name when you go and network with people. Like, hey, I'm JP. I own a training business, and I'm also an officer in the United States Reserve. Like that puts respect in your name. So if you're thinking about this, or maybe you weren't thinking about this, but now you are, like I 100% recommend that you try this out. Especially if you have family and kids or kids that are young. You know, if you want to take care of your family, make sure that they're good. This is a great way to do that. It's a small sacrifice, you know, time that you have to sacrifice, but the reward is huge. It is infinite. So that's all for me today at this episode. My plan was to make it 20-25 minutes. I definitely went over that, but that's because it's something that I really love, that I'm passionate about, and it's something that I really recommend for anyone that's thinking about this or now thinking about this. Um, so yeah, if you live in San Diego at least, and you want to enlist or maybe go officer or whatnot, uh, feel free to reach out to me. I'm still in contact with my recruiters, and there are people that I like how they work and they're communicative. So you know I can help you guys get set up with them. But yeah, thank you for listening to this episode. Once again, this was the Golden Age Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care. God bless.